All right, hello everybody. Welcome to our October 2024 meeting of our Glendale Coin Club. And appreciate all you guys that showed up tonight. I know there's maybe a sporting event, some sports ball going on here that kept a few people home, but thank you for being here, and thanks to all you guys watching at home as well. Let's start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you guys want to stand and join me for that, that'd be great. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. All right, everybody. We got our 50-50 raffle. John Duff's here selling tickets for that. So if you want to get in on that last call right now, and then Duff will tell me when we're ready to do that, I guess. Maybe we want to get to the last part of the announcements. We got a lot of stuff in the raffle there. We got one of the new 2024 Peace Dollars fresh from the mint as our top prize. So buy plenty of raffle tickets and good luck. Announcements. We got our coin show for our club coming up in just over 2 weeks. There's our card for it right there, October 27th at the Van Nuys Masonic Lodge. I hope most of you guys can show up and support our club and support our dealers, just even if you're show up for a little bit as a customer and maybe buy and sell some coins. We did talk about maybe getting some help at the show too. I do have a sign-up sheet. Mostly what we got, I got a friend that's going to be helping at the registration table. She said she'll be there most of the day, or if not all the day. So there'll be somebody, but I don't want it to just be one person. So I got a sign-up sheet for people to if you can pledge to be there for at least an hour or two and pick which one. So at least there's always 2 or maybe 3 people there, especially at the very beginning of the show. We could use a couple extra people like 10, 11 o'clock when we get the more of the rush of folks in there. So if you know you're going to be at the show anyway and you can help out for a little bit sitting at registration, helping to sell the raffle tickets, greatly appreciated. I know John and his wife Rosemary said they would help out with the lunch and handle that part of the kitchen. They might need an extra hand at certain parts of the day or as well. So if anybody is willing to help out with that, I put a spot you can sign up to help in the kitchen around 11, 12, 1 p.m.-ish. Or even if it's just helping sell a few bottles of water or a few Cokes or something like that, that'd be great. Other than that, the only other really help we need at the coin show, which is probably going to be mostly my job, is setting up and cleaning up. So setup in the morning is about 7:30 in the morning. So unless someone's willing to come in and help out, really all that's involved is running the power strips and getting the power all set up before we let the dealers in, and then getting the coffee and donuts going. I mean, I have no problem picking up donuts unless someone else really wants to do that. But if someone's is able to be there that early to help out, an extra hand wouldn't hurt. And if anybody knows how to brew the coffee in one of those big 42-cup coffee makers, that would probably be appreciated by our dealers, because I'm not a coffee drinker and I'll be having to pull out the instructions to figure it out and all that. But so I got a sign-up sheet for that. And then cleaning up, really, it's just, the guys at the Masonic Lodge do all the setting up and cleaning up of the tables. But if someone's there and willing to help put the power cable, wrap up the power cables and, just make sure everything looks all good, and that'd be great too. So I got a sign-up sheet. I already got a few names on here of a couple people that told me what they would be willing to do. Don't have to do this right now. We can take care of this at break, but any help would be appreciated, since we got our friend in Alaska now that did 90% of the stuff at the show, and we'll be trying to do a lot without him this time. So thank you in advance for that. Advertising's underway for the show, so if you're on our list for postcards, you should be getting those this coming week. There's ads on Facebook going on and a couple other places, so you might start seeing those popping around. If anybody wants some of the postcards to share at your local shop or with anybody I got those available. Gonna have a gold and silver raffle at the show as well, so if you're feeling like doing a little gambling, that's great too. And I guarantee we will not have a conflict with the Dodgers at the coin show. I'm not going to say they're going to lose, but if I already looked at the calendar, World Series Game 2 is Saturday, Game 3 is Monday, so our show is right between. So we shouldn't have a conflict. That should make for a good show, because that'd be horrible if there was a conflict with that.
Thanks for scheduling it.
I called Major League Baseball last year and made sure. Yeah, absolutely.
What if there's rain?
Our show will not rain out. Our show will not rain out. I hope not. Okay, and then again, one more note about our meetings here. Just as a reminder, we do need to be out of this library by 10 p.m. They stress that again to me. So any help you guys can do with keeping things rolling. It looks like we don't have too much for an auction tonight, so I don't think we'll have a problem with that tonight. But some nights we get a lot of auction items, so please be understanding if we rush through an auction if there's a bunch of stuff, or if we maybe have to cut it short one night. I don't think we'll have that issue tonight. One more announcement, just other shows going on. I know there's a show in Arcadia the weekend before our club show. That's October 19th and 20th. And then our show again is in Van Nuys at the Masonic Lodge, October 27th. All right, any guests tonight or anybody want to introduce themselves? Say hello, how you found our coin club? Yes, sir.
My name is Jack. This is my first time here.
How'd you hear about the club?
Well, Dennis told me about it.
So it's his fault. Okay. Okay. No, we're actually known as the Friendly Club, I hear. That's what I've been told before I joined. And so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And one of the good things about a coin club is we all collect different things, and you'll probably learn about or hear about things never seen before. And maybe you can share stuff that we never heard of before, and we'll all learn from each other. But yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask any of us. Absolutely. Thank you. Any other announcements or guests? Anybody? No?
No, I've been out for like a few years.
Very good. Very good. Any other questions? Duff, you ready for 50-50 drawing?
Yeah, were you going to talk a little bit about not having all your programs in person versus?
No, I don't think yet. No, but speaking of programs, if anybody has a program that they're doing or at other clubs or wants to do a program here, speak to John Duff. He's our vice president. We're all set for this year through December. But if you have anything, he's working on next year's calendar. So absolutely. All right. I guess we'll wait on the 50-50 just another minute, and then we'll go into our guest speaker. But I guess while we're waiting on that drawing, I'll go ahead and start introducing our speaker tonight. Our speaker tonight is Mr. Jeff Shevlin. He is known as the so-called guy, and he's past executive director of the American Numismatic Association. That's the ANA, our national coin club. And I probably don't say it enough, but I'll say it again here. You guys are all here members of Glendale Coin Club. You really should be members of our national coin club, the ANA. I hear from some people that, they don't like what the ANA does here. It doesn't matter. That's our national coin club. It's what we have. The people change, the things change. You should be supporting that club. They put out a great magazine every month. And if anybody needs help becoming a member of that, you can see me. I can help lead you towards the application and get involved in that. It's definitely something you guys should all be supporting. But yeah, he's a full-time dealer now with expertise in so-called dollars, which we're going to be learning about tonight. He's going to give us an introduction on so-called dollars. He's a writer, researcher, publisher, public speaker, consultant to grading companies and auction firms, life member of the ANA.
Well known.
Very well known. Very well known. Another cool thing is he's a teacher at summer seminar hosted by the ANA. That's another thing you guys should look into if you've never been there. I've never been there, but I always hear great things about it. And I always get jealous hearing the stories of people coming back from that. And then most recently, he's published a new volume on so-called dollars on United States Expositions in 2023, which catalogs all the so-called dollars struck for 67 expositions held in the United States over the years. So, and Duff says the photography. Yeah, because you can look at, there's the older so-called dollar book, which I got a copy of on my shelf, and the photography in that was a couple generations ago. So looking at the new reference book that Jeff has come out with is night and day. Yes, this will be your white tickets if you want tickets for the 50-50. What's the total we got, Duff?
$40.
$40 total. So 20 will go to the winner and 20 will keep the club. Good luck, everybody. And thanks for participating in the 50-50 drawing.
The winning ticket is 617819.
Not me.
6178.
Clarence, I will donate that to the club.
Oh, thank you, Clarence. You didn't have to do that. And again, thanks to Clarence and Mike, they took care of the refreshments tonight for us too. So not only is he donating the 50-50, they took care of that for us tonight, and that really appreciated. So thank you guys for that.
Want an attendance one?
Now we can wait on that. We can wait on that one. All right, Jeff, we're getting ready to start out. You want to go ahead and make your program full screen, and I'll go ahead and share it, and then we'll turn it over to you. Unless you want to start out with just saying hi to everybody, I guess.
Yeah, I'll just say hi to everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to be a guest speaker. And Mike did a wonderful job of introducing me, so thank you very much, Mike.
Absolutely.
I will just mention I'm a past president of TAMS, the Token and Metal Society. And as Mike suggested, if you're not a member of the ANA, you should consider joining it, and I totally agree. And also, TAMS is a great organization with a lot of information about metals and tokens, and they have a section on so-called dollars in every journal that they publish, which they do 6 times a year, and it's edited by Greg Burns, and it's a great publication. All right, so I'm going to full screen.
All right, great. Let me go ahead and share that with everybody, if I can remember how to do that right quick. And there we go. It's all yours, Jeff. Thank you.
All right. So, a so-called dollar is so-called dollars are historical U.S. metals. They're struck to commemorate events in United States history. Now, Mike, can you hear me okay? Can everybody hear me all right? Is this loud enough?
Speak louder.
Louder, yeah.
How's my volume? Is it okay?
Yeah, Jeff, I don't know if you can maybe get a little closer to your microphone. They're just asking. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to check on. Make sure everybody could hear me all right. Is this better like this? Okay. So the so-called dollars or metals are struck to commemorate events in United States history. There's about 700 or 800 different types. About half of them are associated with a fair or an exposition, and the other half are just associated with another event in the United States history, like, for example, the completion of the Erie Canal. And I just published a new standard reference book on this subject. As Mike mentioned, there were 67 expositions that were held in the United States, starting with the 1853 New York Crystal Palace Exposition. And I ended with the 1964 New York World's Fair Exposition. As a dealer, I set up at about 15 of the largest shows in the country. I've been doing that since the 1980s. And I have been just buying and selling so-called dollars at those expositions. And Bill Hyder is my co-author. We've written dozens of articles together, published this is our 4th book. And Bill attended the 1962 Seattle World's Fair, and I attended the 1964 New York World's Fair. So I only deal in so-called dollars from 1964 and earlier. So our reference books end with 1964. So our latest book has hundreds of metals that have never been cataloged before and research, tons of information that's researched that's never been published before as well. The forward is by Ken Brissett. I printed 1,000 books. I did 100 with a deluxe edition with a medal embedded in the cover of the book. Those sold for $149.95, and those are sold out. Out of the 900 other books I printed last year, I have about 200 left. So I'm hoping they're going to be sold out by the end of this year or early next year. An edition is $60, and anybody who buys the book or orders the book today, I will ship it to you for free next week. So check with me or just get back to me if you're interested in getting a book, and I just need to get the address you'd like me to ship it to. So it's almost 300 pages. It's full color, great photos. And one of the things it does is it introduced a new numbering system. If any of you that are familiar with the previous reference book in a series published by Hibbler and Kaplan, the numbering system for that was referred to as H and K. And that numbering system is kind of broken. It's obsolete because there's been so many more metals that have been added that it really just can't handle it all. So the first thing that Bill and I decided to do is we needed to come up with a new numbering system for so-called dollars. So the numbering system starts out with an SH, which stands for Shevlin and Hyder, and an example on the screen has a 7-1. Now, each exposition or group of expositions has a unique number. For example, this is the California Midwinter Exposition, which is held in San Francisco in 1894, and that's exposition number 7. And then all the medals issued for that exposition or each other exposition is just sequentially numbered 1 through 10 or 1 through 50 or however many they are. And in most cases, the official medal is struck by the United States Mint, as is this case, and that's so this is 7-1. It's the official medal struck by the United States Mint, and this is the gold-plated version. They were struck in 3 or 4 different compositions. So if you're not familiar with expositions, they're a big part about how not only our country, but how the whole world was developed. So countries like the United States would host an exposition, invite all the other countries to participate, and there'd be dozens, sometimes 30, 40, 50 different countries that would come and build buildings to showcase their country's advances in technology or arts or whatever the case may be. For example, the Columbian Exposition, which was held in Chicago in 1893, at the time that exposition was held, there were 800,000 people that lived in Chicago. It's kind of hard to conceive or understand, but 27.5 million people went to Chicago that year, 1/4 of the population of the United States. So you can imagine the positive economic impact hosting an exposition would have on your local community. So the different communities would lobby the federal government to have the rights to host these events. This is an example of one of the pages of my book. This is the first exposition that was held in the United States. It's the 1853 New York Crystal Palace. There are 2 so-called dollars that are struck for that exposition, and they're on the lower left-hand side. The official medal was engraved by Charles Stubenranch. It was struck in copper, white metal, and gold-plated. Over 1 million people visited at that exposition, the Crystal Palace in New York, and it was designed and built similar to the Crystal Palace that had been built in England a few years prior to that. And the English Crystal Palace had such a positive impact on so many other expositions that not only did the 1853 New York Crystal Palace build a similar structure to house their artifacts in, so did about 3 or 4 other expositions that were held all over in different locations in the United States. So just to give you an example of a so-called dollar, this is the official medal from the 1876 Centennial Exposition. It was engraved by William Barber. Now, every one of these medals has a story to tell, which is kind of what's fun about collecting so-called dollars. For example, if you had a collection of about 100 Morgan dollars, they'd all have the same design, maybe a different dates and mint marks, but it's all the same design. Where if you had a collection of 100 so-called dollars, you'd have 100 different designs with 100 different stories and reasons why they were struck. Not only the person that they're commemorating and the event, but who struck it, why they struck it, when they struck it, where they struck it, who engraved it. You could probably take any one of these medals and write a book on them. In fact, Bill Hyder and I did that, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit later in a few minutes. But for example, when you look at this medal, on the obverse, there's a female in a reclining position. She represents the United States, and she's rising up. And above her are the stars and rays of light. So she's rising up, reaching for glory. And at this time, most of Europe considered the United States to be a third world country. The message the United States is giving to the rest of the world in 1876, on the 100th anniversary of our centennial of our Declaration of Independence, is that the United States can be rising up to be recognized as a world power. And normally in heraldry, you have an olive branch in your right hand, which means you prefer peace, and a sword in your left hand. But in this case, Liberty is holding the sword in her right hand, which means the United States is going to be rising up to be recognized as a world power and don't threaten us. That was engraved by William Barber and was also struck in 3 or 4 different other compositions. Just some more fascinating information that's published in my book. For example, there are two assistant engravers, George Soley and William Key, that worked at the United States Mint in the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, up through the early 1900s. And they engraved so many really fascinating metals that not too many people are aware of. And this is just from one of the pages in my book. It's a breakdown of different metals engraved by George Soley. In the center is a common reverse with a star on it. And then there's 5 different designs along the outside with George Washington, Independence Hall, a Seat of Liberty, a military scene, and the Centennial Fountain. So for each one of these expositions, of which there are 67, there's some general information about the exposition, why it was held, some of the people, and some of the events that happened there. This is the official medal from the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition. This is engraved by George Morgan, the same person who did the Morgan dollar. I already talked a little bit about that exposition, so I'll just move on from that. Here is a 1920 Manila Mint opening Wilson dollar. This is struck in gold. It was reported that there were 5 struck in gold, but I'm aware of 7. So there's certainly more than 5. Perhaps as many as 10 may have been struck in gold. They're also struck in silver and copper. And this was kind of like the United States' first overseas mint. The United States trained the Philippines how to operate their own mint. Before that, the United States was striking Philippine coinage in the United States and shipping it to the Philippines. So the symbolism on the reverse here is a female representing the United States teaching this young child, the Philippines, how to strike coinage, which is the coining press in front of that person. I mentioned different stories associated with these metals. When during World War II, the United States was in the Philippines, and they realized that the Japanese were invading and they were going to lose the Philippines. So they started evacuating it for several days in advance, and they evacuated as much of the gold and silver coinage as they could, and a lot of the important people and stuff like that. But right before the Japanese invaded, they still had millions of dollars worth of coinage, silver coinage and copper coinage, that they were not able to get off the island. So they took it to the deepest part of the Manila Bay, where it was about 150 feet deep, and dumped it into the ocean. Well, when the Japanese invaded, they were interrogating prisoners, and they found out that this had happened. So they were forcing Filipino divers to do deep sea recovery to recover the silver coinage. And they were dying from the bends because they were not experienced divers, so they refused to do it. They'd rather be shot than do it. So the Japanese got some Navy prisoner of war people to do it, and they actually did recover a small percentage of the coinage that was dumped into the Manila Bay, but they were smuggling out a good percentage of it to the guerrillas there at that time. After the war, the United States came back and recovered probably about 80 or 90% of all that was dumped into the ocean there. The reason why I'm mentioning this is just one example of one so-called dollar, and a similar story can be told about every one of these. And here's a previous book that was authored by Bill Hyder and I. We talked about the 1939 Golden Gate International Exposition, and specifically the Charbonneau so-called dollars, the last of the coins of the Golden West that were minted for that exposition. And Jules Charbonneau had a fascinating life story. We researched his story and told many things that were never known about him before. And he struck quite a few different gold coins and silver coins for a number of different expositions. As I mentioned, with the book we wrote, this is our 4th book, the one I was talking about as far as volume 1, the so-called dollars from United States expositions. All the books we've written, we've published 1,000 of them, and they've all sold out. The only book I currently have for sale is our latest edition, which I published last year. So, and this is just another example of how you can tell stories about all these metals. And and there's just so much research. unlike U.S. coinage, where there are dozens and dozens of books written on every coin, whether it's the Buffalo nickel or a Morgan dollar or a Mercury dime, there is very little really published artifacts on so-called dollars. Now you see articles in the Numismatist and various publications and TAMs on a regular basis where people are writing articles about the various metals, but many of them have never really been researched and published. So if you enjoy researching and learning about the things that you collect, so-called dollars has a great opportunity for you to have an opportunity to research something that nobody else has necessarily taken the time to do as much research as you'd be willing to do on it, and publish articles and give presentations on it. So here is the one of Jules Charbonneau's so-called dollars from the 1939 Golden Gate International Exposition. The reason why I write this book, at the time, there was about a dozen, well, there's actually 16 different medals that were struck by Jules Charbonneau at the 1939-1940 GGIE. But at the time, there's just a bunch of conflicting information on each one of those medals, on which was struck, when they were struck, why they were struck. And I really couldn't figure it all out. So I started researching it and eventually figured out all the different medals that were struck. And doing so, I was able to figure out why they evolved and changed over a period of time. And that's part of what the story is that we told in our book on the Charbonneau so-called dollars. Now, Mike, I forgot to ask, how long am I supposed to talk for?
How long were you planning on talking?
As long as you want me to. Like 30 minutes? Is that a good time?
Roughly 30 minutes or so total is what we usually do, somewhere around there.
Great. Okay, well, maybe when it's about 5 minutes left, if you don't mind, just let me know.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
far, so good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So here are some different metals, some of the gold ones that were struck. There's one on the left, upper left is 1D solid gold. The next one is 1D 10K solid gold. Actually, they were not struck in solid gold, so the first one is misleading. That's why they changed it to 10K, because that's what they're actually struck in. But they were visited by the Treasury Department, and they were threatened to confiscate the dies because they said that they're selling this as like $1. So the third variety they changed to a 1-star 10K solid gold. And then they later in the year, they struck a 22K, a higher gold content version, which is the 1-star, says 10K, but it's counterstamped 22K above it. And they also have a 1D 10K solid gold with a 40 counterpunched on the reverse. So those were medals from 1939 that they had sold. And the exposition was really originally just planned to reopen for the year 1939, but they decided to reopen for about 5 months in 1940. So Jules Charbonneau repunched some of the medals that he had that were not sold with a 40 on the reverse to sell them in 1940. Here's a picture of the fairgrounds for the 1894 California Midwinter Exposition. This was held in Golden Gate Park. If you've ever been to Golden Gate Park, where the D. Young Museum is, you'll notice there's a lower sunken quad area in the middle. Well, that's what's in the center area of the grounds here for the Midwinter Exposition. All the buildings were built along the perimeter of that sunken area. That sunken area is still there. And there's still quite a few statues and other artifacts from the Midwinter Exposition there. The Japanese tea garden was off to the right. So this is just an example of some information from that exposition. The electric tower was one of the main features there. It would light up areas in San Francisco miles away, like as if it was daylight. And here's some of the attractions that were there. Just like almost all the expositions, not only did they have a cultural aspect to them, they also had an amusement aspect. They normally have an area in the exposition dedicated for rides and different types of just, activities, restaurants, bars, dances and stuff like that. So here's just a few things from that exposition. This is the official medal from the California Midwinter Exposition. It was engraved by William Barber. And on opening day, and only on opening day, they struck and sold these medals gold-plated. Now, in each one of these expositions that the United States came to, and they did not set up at all of these 67 expositions that struck so-called dollars that were held in the United States, but they attended the majority of them, and they would bring their presses, and they'd set them up and strike medals there and sell them as souvenirs. And they would demonstrate the entire minting process every day. So whatever medals were left unsold from the previous day, they'd melt them down. They'd add additional materials to them if they needed to. They'd roll them out into molds. They would flatten them out into strips. They'd punch out the planchets. They'd upset the rims. They'd anneal them and clean them and process them. And then they'd strike the metals. So you could actually see the entire minting process demonstrated every day. Here's the 1861 Dickinson Continental Dollar. Most people believe that this was struck in 1876. And the reason why I know that's not the case, because about 5 to 10 years ago, Q. David Bowers contacted me and said, Jeff, I'm writing a book on the Continental Dollar. And do you have any positive reference that it was struck in 1876? And I said, well, no, I don't. I just kind of say that because that's what everybody else says. So Bill Hyder and I started researching it. We found out that Montefiore Dickinson had these dies made and struck the Continental dollars, along with a handful of other metals that he struck in 1861. So they're not from 1876. But these dies fell into the hands of a number of famous numismatists over the years. Now, truly, you can go to a lot of dealers' junk boxes and find restrikes of Continental dollars that are worth a few dollars a piece. But collectors will pay huge premiums for the Continental dollars struck from Dickinson's original dies, or later, in the early 1900s, Thomas Elder acquired those dies, and he muled them with other dies that he had made and struck metals, as well as Q. David Bowers in 1961 did it, and Robert Basho also did it in 1962. And then I did it about 2 years ago. I acquired the original hubs that were used to create these dies, the same dies that Bashlow and Q. David Bowers used. And I had Daniel Carr create new dies for me. And I struck these metals, Continental dollar restrikes, using those dies. And there was a quite successful mintage. I strike about once or twice a year. I strike metals that I privately issue, and I sell them. And I've been doing that since 2014. So here is one of the metals struck by Thomas Elder with Dickinson dies. And here's one struck by Q. David Bowers. This is struck in 1961. They all have this die gouge below the C of Continental. And that's how one of the artifacts associated with identifying Q. David Bowers restrikes. Now, when I first started collecting these metals, I was trying to figure out, how do you know which metals Q. David Bowers strike, or Basho struck, or Elder struck? And I researched with dozens and dozens of people on all the different subjects and category information that was published at that time. And I could find no definitive, that nobody really knew for sure who struck when, where, and why. That's part of the research that I did, and I published all that information about 15 or 20 years ago. That is now kind of being the standard reference for people that have an interest in these metals, to identify which metals they are, which type they have, and when it was struck and who it was struck by. Here's an example of an ad placed by Empire Coin Company selling their metals in 1961. And this is one of the envelopes that Q. David Bowers sold them in. And it actually is, it's incorrectly stated here. It says proof restrike and pewter from the MS Dickinson dies prepared in 1876. Well, as you know, they were really prepared in 1861. And here's a restrike done by Bashlow. Bashlow restruck them in silver. This is a silver example. has a little S near the bottom, which stands for silver. He also struck them in goldine, and he struck them in bronze. And here's the envelopes that they were issued in. He struck 2,000 in silver and 3,000 in goldine. Here's another medal from the 1894 California Midwinter Exposition. There's a grizzly bear on a crag overlooking the fairgrounds. And this is a fairly accurate representation of what the fairgrounds actually look like. A lot of the times, medals struck associated with an exposition are just pure random. They just might have buildings and things there because they were often struck in advance to sell as a souvenir, and nobody really knew for sure how the fairgrounds were going to look, but they evolved and changed over time. So this one is a fairly accurate representation of what the fairgrounds actually look like. Also, you notice the reverse is aluminum. Well, back in the late 1800s, aluminum was a very sexy metal to strike metals in. Prior to that, in the 1860s and 1870s, aluminum was very expensive, much more valuable even than gold. But with the discovery of electricity, they're able to manufacture aluminum very cost effective. So now a metal that might have cost you hundreds of dollars, you can now buy for a quarter or a nickel. So it'd be like if you could make gold coins now for $1. It'd be very popular and everybody'd be buying and making gold coins and selling them. So that's how aluminum was at that time in the late 1800s. There's a medal that's struck by Thomas Elder about William Jennings Bryan. And Thomas Elder has a reputation of strength. If he had something to say, he would go ahead and say it. So he struck a lot of medals, satirical medals with a number of different people. And here's one he did for William Jennings Bryan. It says, "Thrice defeated, what will the great commoner do now?" Well, William Jennings Bryan ran for the presidency and was defeated 3 times in 1896, 1900, and 1908. And he was running on the silver platform. So a lot of these medals have references to the striking of gold and silver on the reverse. Here's some flyers for the 1915 Panama Pacific International Exposition that was held in San Francisco. There are 5 commemorative coins struck for that exposition: a silver $50, a $1 gold coin, a $2.50 gold coin, and 2 $50 gold coins around an octagonal gold coin. Those coins were engraved by by Robert Aiken. Sorry, I had to skip down and see by Robert Aiken, those gold coins. And he also designed the official coin for this exposition. It was held in the Marina District in San Francisco. It was the second exposition held in the Bay Area. And this is a picture of the Palace of Fine Arts that's still there today. In fact, all these expositions, they would build dozens, sometimes hundreds or even several hundred. Like for the Columbian Exposition, over 200 buildings were built for that exposition. And some of these buildings were the largest buildings ever built at that time in history. And most of them were built out of plaster and staff, a temporary type of product, and they weren't meant to be permanent structures. But all the fine arts, particularly those from Europe, could not be stored in temporary structures for insurance purposes. So most of the expositions built a number of permanent structures to house the fine arts. And those today are the only structures that have survived from those expositions, such as the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, which is now the Exploratorium. And here's the official medal from that exposition designed by Robert Aiken. It's got Mercury on the obverse, opening the locks to the Golden Canal, through which a ship sailing the ship Argo, the symbol of navigation. On reverse are 2 females, kind of entwined, representing the uniting of the Western and Eastern hemispheres. It was struck in silver. It was also struck gold-plated, which is not listed in Hibbler and Cappen. And here's a flyer for the release of that medal. This is an envelope, actually, that it came in. And in Hibbler and Cappen, they identified that they were struck in bronze. But I knew that wasn't correct because I'd seen a lot of different types of bronze medals. So as a collector, I was reluctant to sell them until I kind of figured out what was going on. And I attended a coin show up in the Northwest where Michael Sanders, he's a coin dealer. He's not as active as he used to be, but he used to sell a lot of so-called dollars. Showed me this one-page flyer that's placed in the San Francisco Chronicle selling these medals for sale. And in this area here, I enlarged it. It's talking about the official medals that were sold there. And it says they were sold as a bright bronze, an oxidized bronze, an antique bronze, and a statuary bronze. And when he showed me that about 10 years ago, a light went on, and then I realized, okay, now that explains the different varieties that I had seen for all these years. So Bill Hyder and I went back and met in my office, and we were able to group all the different metals into those 4 different types of categories. And this is part of the information that is accessible in the books that we have published. There's another satirical medal struck making fun of William Jennings Bryan. And in the center, there's a cartwheel. And that identifies how large a silver dollar was. The larger size identifies how large a silver dollar would be if William Jennings Bryan were to be elected presidency. He was running on the free coinage of silver, which is a topic that I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail on. But basically, it was an alternative to the gold standard. And he ran on that platform and, as I mentioned, was defeated 3 times. And here's some cartoons of William Jennings Bryan. He actually controlled the Democratic Party for about 15 years. And here's another so-called dollar. This is one from the Centennial Exposition. It's a Love at Battle series, and it's one of 8 medals depicting the obverse of George Washington, commemorating 8 different battles George Washington fought in 1776. He fought many more than 8 battles that year, first year. Some of these battles he was successful at, and others he was not. But why this is fascinating, because as a collector, now that I've collected these medals, I've taken the time to research, for example, this particular medal, the Battle of Trenton, that occurred on December 26th in New Jersey. I've learned and gained so much more respect for the leadership of George Washington. And that's just one example, but there's medals about Grant and Lincoln and dozens of famous Americans and events and things that have happened in our history that I would not know anything about if it wasn't for my interest in these medals. Just going to share some information with you on this medal. That was the battle that took place on December 26th when George Washington crossed the Delaware. It was a hazardous night, and they actually captured the Hessian forces with negligible losses to the American forces. Here's a famous painting of George Washington crossing the Delaware. I'm sure many of you recognize this painting. What's fascinating about this painting is the artist who did it depicts about a dozen or more famous people that are represented in this particular collage. And each one you can identify and tell a story about every one of those individuals if you want. John Adams is here holding the flag. The next medal here is an example from the 1905 Lewis and Clark Exposition. In the previous book, reference book, published by Hibler and Kaplan, they listed 4 different conjoined busts of Lewis and Clark. In the book that Bill Hyder and I published, we identify 18 different busts. So if you are a collector of any particular exposition, and you were using the standard references prior to the books we've been publishing, all of a sudden now you'll be aware of many, perhaps dozens of medals for those expositions that you may have been aware of a few of them, but you may not have been aware of all of them that exist. And the publishing of this book, it wasn't just simply done by Bill Hyder and myself. We spent about 5 years publishing each one of our books. It's a collaborative effort. There's well over 20 other advanced numismatists who specialize in so-called dollars that contribute to each one of the books that we publish. Here's a medal that was struck for the 1893 Columbian Exposition. The obverse was engraved by St. Gaudens. The reverse was engraved by Charles Barber. and there's about 4 or 5 different varieties of this metal, and it was struck in a number of different compositions. Very popular metal from the Columbian Exposition. Here's another one of my favorite medals. This is the 1878 Washington Valley Forge Centennial. This is engraved by William Barber. It was struck in silver and bronze. And in many of these medals, using this one as an example, there's probably less than 20 known in silver. Maybe, and this one is maybe 10 to 15 of these medals known in silver. And if this is a Morgan dollar for a particular year, like an 1893 which is maybe 1,000, but if there's only 10 or 15 known, instead of costing 50,000 or 100,000, it'd be costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the point is, collecting so-called dollars, you can collect marvelous metals engraved by the same people who made coinage, made U.S. coins, for a fraction of the cost that it costs to buy U.S. coins, and get very cool, wonderful designs and great rarities. This particular metal, of which I mentioned is maybe about a dozen of them, in a high grade is going to cost anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 for like a 63 or 65. A bronze medal might be between $575, $750. Here's the medal. This is the official medal for the 1909 Alaska and Yukon Pacific Exposition. This was struck in a number of different compositions. This is a gold-plated variety. It was also struck in silver, copper, bronze, and silver-plated. And this is also engraved by George Morgan. Here's the 1902 Wells Fargo Centennial Medal. This is struck on the 50th anniversary of Wells Fargo. And they gave one to each employee who had worked for Wells Fargo for at least 1 year prior to that time. They probably struck around 1,000 of these medals. I believe there was a couple thousand people that actually were working for Wells Fargo at that time. But it's just another example of a really cool so-called dollar. A very detailed design on the obverse and on the reverse. Nobody knows who engraved or struck this medal. Here's a gold medal from the 1959 Oregon Statehood Centennial. There's not very many so-called dollars that were struck in gold, but there's probably maybe 30 or 40. As I mentioned, to be a so-called dollar, it has to commemorate events in United States history. I didn't actually go through all the details, but it has to be approximately the size of a silver dollar. A silver dollar is 38.2 millimeters, so anything between 33 and 45 millimeters can be classified as a so-called dollar. Now, so-called dollars, there's lots of different categories of medals. If you take out religious medals, athletic medals, awarded medals, military medals, advertising pieces, you kind of left the group of medals that were just commemorating events, United States events, history, United States history. And that's that's the category of so-called dollars. This is one of them that was struck in gold. Here's another one of my favorites. This is another one engraved by William Barber. This is struck for the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, which was going from the west heading east and from the east heading west. And it was completed in 1869 when Grant was president of the United States. And it's got a wonderful design of Grant on the obverse and a locomotive train on the reverse. Again, there's probably less than 20 of these known in silver. You can get a fairly inexpensive one for under $1,000. A nice 63 or 65 is going to cost you maybe $3,000 or $4,000. Out of the 1,000 or so or 800 or so different so-called dollars, you can probably pick up about half of them, probably about 500 of them, in nice, choice, uncirculated grade for anywhere between $100 to $300. And many of those might be just a few dozen to a few hundred that are even known. Excuse me. So that wraps up my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
All right, thank you, Jeff. Anyone have any questions for Jeff? Anyone?
What was the dimension that you mentioned to make it called so?
So yeah, Jeff, they were asking about the dimensions of what makes it a so-called dollar, and you mentioned it has to be the size roughly of a U.S. silver dollar. And I had a question maybe that goes along with that too, because I always wondered like why some of the really small ones, like the Charbonneau dollars, like fall in. Is it maybe just the size of any U.S. dollar, or even like a gold dollar?
Basically, yes. A U.S. dollar is 38 millimeters. So a so-called dollar has to be between 33 and 45 millimeters, approximately the size of a silver dollar. And also, any metals that were struck in gold that are gold dollar sized also qualifies as a so-called dollar. So it's the size of a silver dollar or a gold dollar. Now, a metal that's small that was not struck in gold would not be classified as a so-called dollar. But if it was struck in gold and silver and bronze, because it was struck in gold, therefore it becomes a so-called dollar. And the gold, the silver, and the bronze will be cataloged as so-called dollars. If it's only struck in bronze, it would not be considered a so-called dollar because it doesn't have a variety of struck in gold. So you can have small $1 gold size pieces and large silver dollar size metals.
All right, thank you.
All right, great. Jeff, Kyle, one of our viewers online, has a question too. Let me get that for you. It's he's asking if you know what year the medals were struck for the Erie Canal. He's in Western New York, so I'm guessing that's why he likes that one.
Yeah, they were struck in 1826. And there were about 8 of them struck in gold. At that time in 1826, there were still 3 people alive that had signed the Declaration of Independence. All 3 of them received a copy. The George Washington estate received a copy. You've probably heard of Lafayette, but if you haven't, you should. He was a French person that came and fought for George Washington and was his aide and helped train a lot of the soldiers. And he got a gold one. And so did the highest ranking Navy and Army officers at that time. To date, as far as I know, and I'm pretty sure that's accurate, there are only 2 of them have ever come on the market for sale. About 10 years ago, an extra fine one sold, and has been since sold again. And about 6 or 7 years ago, another one that was uncirculated came on the market. So there's only 2 gold ones known in private hands. There's only a few known in museums. So out of the 8 or so that were struck, about half of them, there's no records of their existence. There's also struck in white metal and silver. The silver ones are very popular. They're all very popular. The white metal ones are probably anywhere from $750 to a few $1,000s for a nice one. They come often in original boxes. The boxes caused pestering on the white metals, so it's rather difficult to find a nice looking white metal one. The silvers are fairly scarce. There's probably less than a few dozen of them struck in silver. Maybe 40 or 50 are out there still as far as known struck in silver. And they're going to cost you a few $1,000s up to maybe, well, I think one just sold for over $10,000 not too long ago, but you can get a nice one for $3,000 to $5,000. A great, cool metal.
Very cool. Yeah, and I think those aren't those the boxes? They're made from wood that was carried down the first trip or something like that.
The Seneca Chief was the first ship that sailed on the Erie Canal, and the boxes were made out of wood from the Seneca Chief boat.
Oh, from the boat. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Jeff? I think that's going to be it, Jeff. Well, thank you very much for doing this, and thanks to John Duff for arranging this for our club as well, and really do appreciate it.
Mike. If you'd ever like me to give a talk on something else, I'd be glad to. And also, if you don't mind, if there's anybody interested in purchasing my book, it's $60, and I'll ship it for free next week. So if you can let Mike know and Mike can let me know, I'll use your address or your email, and we can go from there.
I'll let you know if anyone wants to take you up on that. And I know one of our moderators on the YouTube chat's been sharing your link to your site there for the book too. So if anyone watching at home, watching this live or watching this next week or next month or next year, get in touch with Jeff. I have a website.
It's so-called dollar, SO-CALLEDDOLLAR.com. And my website I have, it's a great website. It's an amazing website. I've got thousands of medals for sale, so-called dollars for sale. I have information on all the books I've written and how to purchase them, There's discussion pages, blogs. It's kind of the central place for collectors of so-called dollars.
And if you're interested in so-called dollars and you're here in Southern California, you can see Jeff at the Long Beach show. Make sure you stop by his table.
Yes,
He's
I
got a
attend.
lot over there on display, and they're
And
for
Mike
sale.
always has a nice group of them too.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
All right, my pleasure, Mike. Thank you. Good night.
All right. Very good. So that was our presentation. Thank you very much. And again, apologize to some of you guys in the room. I know the speakers, we got them in here as loud as I can. I could unplug it and you'd have the speaker coming out of my laptop, which is loud for me sitting right here, but maybe not for you over there. It's just, I'll talk to the librarians and see if they can get these going or get them louder or something if we have a out of the room speaker again sometime. But all right, I think with that we got to go ahead and get the show and tell. So if you didn't sign up for show and tell, you got time to,
Dennis, Mac, you're up first.
we'll get you up here. And then stuff. Can we get? You got any of those white tickets? You give each person a ticket. I already got the strips of the 2, 4, and 6 for people to do it.
For attendance.
No, for everyone in the show and tell, give them a ticket. That'd be right. Thank you.
Okay. I brought along a set of coins, United States Constitution commemorative. They made it in a silver dollar and a gold coin. And I bought these back when they were first issued by the government. And I got the double set that's got a gold coin and a silver coin uncirculated and a gold silver coin in proof. So if you didn't know which set to buy for future investment, you got one of each. And it was a pretty good investment. If you melt that today, the gold coins are worth about $750, and the silver coins are worth about $30 a piece. So that's not bad for a $400 investment.
But there's some real constitutional silver and gold for sure.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Anyway,
Cool set.
and they made the box so that you could open the box without damaging it. It's hinged.
Very nice. Well, thank you. And if you guys want to set your show and tell items up on the table there, people can check them out during the break. That'd be great.
Bill, you're up next.
In keeping with the theme of so-called dollars tonight, I have been collecting those for quite a while myself. I have probably about 15 on eBay right now, and I got probably another 30 or 40 to put on eBay. But I brought a couple, only these two, because I thought they would probably show up more under the magnifying glass and the screen there than anything else. This is from the Lewis and Clark Exposition held in Portland. A very popular exposition in 1905. And, pardon?
Did you go to that one, he says?
Yeah, I bought this at the exposition. It shows Lewis and Clark on one side and shows the area on the reverse side. It's in nice condition.
Very nice.
I have collected quite a bit of Lewis and Clark material over the years and probably sold most of it, but I still have a couple of the so-called dollars left. The other one I have, that was from the exposition, and as the speaker said, not only expositions, but other events. This happens to be one from the Mariposa County Courthouse. And they were celebrating their centennial in 1954. So that was just kind of an unusual type of topic. You don't normally see things or hear about things like that, but it's kind of gold colored and
Cool.
it's a nice octagonal shape too, and just quite interesting. And hope the members can see that. And I'll bring some more in next month, and a couple other surprises too.
Very nice, Phil. Thanks for sharing us. I'm gonna go next, Duff.
Okay.
I'll jump the line and do my show and tell because Phil just showed the 1905 so-called dollar, and my show and tell is a 1904 from the year before's expo in St. Louis, Louisiana Purchase Expo, and this one was done by the U.S. Mint, and they did it in a few different compositions. This is the bronze one, and just always like these medals. I just like Phil's medal where it has the West Coast states. This one, I always like medals that have maps on them and stuff, and this one has the full U.S. with the U.S. With the Louisiana Purchase outlined on there. So it says that they bought. What does it say on here? It says 10 million square miles for 15 million bucks. Not a bad deal. There's a couple good states in there, right? I think so. A few.
There's an example of inflation.
Yeah, a little bit of inflation there. Maybe so. Maybe so. All right. Very good. Thanks. Good stuff. Who's next? Dennis. Thank you.
I brought in something that must be a little scarce, or I brought in a couple of so-called dollars that are raw.
We can change that.
Here's one from the midwinter. What's interesting about this one, the 1894, is this one was apparently used as a pocket piece for quite a while. And you can see the pricing on it. So I've had that a long, long time because it costs virtually nothing. Here's another one from 1950. It's pretty dark and probably hard to see. But the interesting thing is that's got a hole in it, so it was mounted on something. I have another one in my collection I wanted to bring in that's supposed to be unique, that's actually mounted in a badge.
Very cool.
And I brought in another thing. It's not a so-called dollar, but it's about the right size. It's from 39, and it's a political item. And it also has a hole in it, so it fits in my collection better.
Get it to focus. I'll show it.
It's political. It can't be focused.
There we go.
Plus, it's time for the election, so it's appropriate. And it was coming out of the Depression, and he wanted to make sure everybody was eating. I don't know if he won.
$30 a week for life.
Yeah.
That's what they give you, huh?
Back then, that was a lot of money. It's not today.
A couple of years ago, it was still a lot of money. Thanks for sharing those. What do we got here?
Okay, I brought in a 20 baht coin. I bought it on eBay a couple weeks ago. So it was for the king's 36th birthday. So they have like a 12-month lunar cycle. So somehow like 36 is significant to them, or 12, and then it's 12 times 3. So the current king, Rama the 10th, this is his 72nd birthday. So they're having like all kind of things for him and whatnot. So there it is.
So 36th and 72nd are big, not just even numbers. That's cool. There you go. Thanks. Thanks for sharing.
Steve?
Yeah, that was from Thailand, right?
Yeah, Taiwan.
That's what was asking. Yep.
Hope I could be forgiven for bringing paper money.
Of course. No.
But I brought a $2 bill with a kind of new discovered star note. Typically, star notes have that hole in the middle. This is a solid star on one side.
Filled in, yeah.
And apparently, they've been turning up on San Francisco District $2 bills. This is the first one I've ever seen.
Cool.
So I just picked that up. And then last night in another coin club, I picked up a note made for the fun show, the Florida United Numismatic Show by J.S.G. Boggs. And he's deceased now, but he was known as the money artist. And he didn't typically sell his bills. These, I think, he contracted 500 to be made for the fun show to give them to dignitaries and auctioned or sold off. But he usually had to spend them, and they had to be accepted in commerce. And I understand he's traded them for meals, dental work, and even a motorcycle. I met him about 25, 30 years ago in New York A&A show and tried to buy something from him, but he wouldn't sell it. He would only. So I offered him electric services, but he never contacted me. But last night I was able to buy one at a club auction, and I still have a picture where I met him about 30 years ago. We'll just go into that. It's me and him back in the day, and I finally got a piece of his art.
Well, very cool.
That's it.
I haven't seen that one. That's cool. Here you go, Steve. Thanks for sharing those.
Ed?
I was on vacation. I was over different countries in Europe. Most of them are, I have coins that are, euros. But this was an interesting country I was in. I was in the old Czech Republic. And so these are some of the coins that they carry. There's like 20, I think it's like 22 crowns equal $1. So that's a two crown. And then there's a 10 crown right there too. So, but part of my trip that I did enjoy, I was at the Oktoberfest in Munich, Germany. So that was the first time for me, and there's a lot of beer drinking there. So that was my highlight. So anyway, those.
How much beer would these buy?
They would buy. Okay, I was surprised how much. They drink more beer than water there, and water is more expensive than beer. I wonder why. And that was the first time I experienced warm beer. Usually, but we all drink cold beer. But warm beer is I guess they don't ferment it or whatever, preserve it or anything. So it's a different type of taste.
Probably get used to it.
Yeah, and it's all local breweries there and stuff. So Oktoberfest is about the size of Disneyland. The layout, the land. It's in the city, in the middle of the city, and they just close the streets off and everybody's celebrating, from families, kids, everything. It was really very interesting how they do that. Okay.
Thanks, Ed.
Anyone else have a show and tell? Should brought some beer.
I cut up.
Anyone else have a show and tell?
Ed's got something.
I was there.
Yeah, a lot of people asked for that. I was in
Sorry, been in the car a while.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for making it.
It's okay. I'm pulling it up because I didn't print out the thing. So you remember so last year I did the archives. It was our at USC. So every year, actually this is the 19th year. At USC, they have what they call Los Angeles Archives, and different organizations around the city get together. It could be libraries, clubs, cities, towns, and they just bring all kinds of archives. And I'd gone there a few years ago for COVID, and I'm always, because my numismatics are motivated or inspired by history. I kind of follow wherever I'm interested in history. I said, wow, this is a great place. Maybe I could get a table. So anyway, the last couple of years, I did the Monroe Doctrine coin because it has Los Angeles on it. Now, I did that 2 years. I had to figure out, I wanted to do something new. Well, there's only one other coin that has Los Angeles on it. And what is that? The Olympics.
Oh.
So, and the Olympics are coming back in 4 years. And they're going to be at the Coliseum. So I was like, oh, this is great.
Perfect.
So, it's next week. The 19th at the Heaney Memorial Library. I'll have a table. I brought a book that I have at the table so people can look at, and I still have to make more printouts. But anyway, if you want to just show this, there's for the people online, they could see it. It's like that. It's not much.
It's at the USC.
It's a USC.
10 to 3.
10 to 3.
Saturday.
It's really cool. If you're a history nerd of any sort, you really like it. And then just stuff like since this is the is the Olympics, the Olympic dollar, and I think I have a couple of those.
There's the other one, 83 and 84, and then there's the gold.
Yeah, and then I have other things in here like an old map of Exposition Park. This was from the last year's.
Cool.
So anyway, and that's that.
So, a lot of ephemera at it?
I'm sorry?
A lot of ephemera? Is it for sale? Or
Some things are for sale, yeah. And they have all like people can have postcards, they can have posters, they can have old anything archival and books. It's
Sounds cool.
It's really cool. And if I can get a couple of these,
Yeah, you know, take as many as those you want. Yeah, absolutely.
do you have more?
I think I got some more in the car. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, oh, great. All right, thanks. I'll come by some tickets. So that's it. I know it's short notice.
No, perfect.
I drive up from Santa Ana, so it's sometimes tough to get here on time. But Mary, and all those books. If we could auction them off for $1 each for the club.
Okay.
If you guys want to take a look at them later, I'm just trying to take all this time right now. Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, come on up.
I have a couple of coins. This coin is from Guatemala, and when they first came out, the government tried to bring down the cost, so it came up with a coin. It was heavier, so the population didn't like it. So after a few years, they come up with a lighter design. Right now, I think they stopped making those because for some reason people still don't like them. This is another coin that actually hasn't changed that much since I was a little boy. With this coin, I was able to buy a couple of sodas and some potato chips. And they don't make those anymore because people don't like the pocket change anymore.
Oh. So people don't like any coins at all anymore there? Or is that what it
No,
is?
this one is still, but lower than that, people, they don't even take it. There's even some signs like we don't take coins.
Yeah.
Kind of that.
Bummer for a coin collector.
But these are untouchable. So these are.
Well, thanks for sharing. That's great.
Can you put your name here for us too?
All right, very good. Anybody else with show and tell?
Anybody have a okay.
So if you did show and tell, John's giving you a white ticket, and we're going to pick for some extra tickets for the raffle. As a thank you for doing show and tell. Perfect.
Okay, for 2 tickets, 617857. 617857 on the white ticket I gave you.
I don't set anything, sir. Just said, let's pick the meeting.
That's it. All right.
Perfect.
All right. So for 4 tickets, 617858. Doesn't matter. Sorry, guys. There's only 6 tickets in there.
We got good odds.
Okay, last one for 6 tickets. 617855. That's
I had 856. You bounced all around it. Very good. All right, everybody. Thanks again for doing the show and tell, everybody, and thanks, John, for helping out with that. One last thing we got to do for the online portion of the meeting is give away a giveaway prize. This was last month. We showed this. It's a first day cover of the 1975 Bicentennial Medal with the stamps. So if you've left a comment on last month's Coin Club video that we did, you're in on that. If you didn't do it yet, you got about a minute to do it until I pull up the comment picker in the video. Next month, so if you leave a comment once this live stream becomes a video, you'll have a chance to win this quarter here. This was donated to us by Dorian of DNL Bullion that does our coin show. He'll be there in a week or 2 weeks at the Van Nuys show. This is a 2020 W Weir Farm quarter he donated to us. So that'll be for next month. But go ahead and Green Go OG22 is putting some the link in there for the video. I'll have to pull that up, and then we'll pick the winner. For those of you guys in the room here, you guys don't have to wait through and while I try to figure this out, you guys can go ahead and check out the auction items and go ahead and buy more raffle tickets if you want. Again, thank you to Clarence and Mike for taking care of the refreshments tonight too. And we'll wrap this up. Thank you. Let's see here. Let me try to pull that up and then we'll pick a winner. And thanks again to all you guys watching at home as well. And hope you guys have enjoyed. Let me get the link here.
There's $71.
What's that? Oh, thank you.
I think that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Duff. All right, let me pull the video here. I probably should just copy the link that Gringo already put in the thing. That'd be easiest.
We didn't
Yes.
pass out any tickets for attending, so.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll just do that as the first prize, I guess. Yeah,
All right,
that's
well, we'll
fine.
just add it to the first prize.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that too. All right, let me get this. Sorry, this takes me a minute here to do this. Let me go to the comment picking website.
No.
If I can find that. There we go.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I don't know if I'm going to be able to share this here. It's not really cooperating with me, but I'm going to obtain the comments right now. So if you are in, by now you're in. It's 18 comments, and the winner is, for the first day cover medal, the winner is SW331. I think they won last month too. If I remember correctly. Well, congratulations. SW331 says, great show, and thanks for live streaming the meetings. So you're welcome. They're just SW on YouTube, but it shows up here, SW331. So let me write that down. And that is the 1975 medal. Just go ahead and send me an email to claim the prize. And can't remember if I mailed last month or not. I think I did, but too bad I didn't wait. And then again, if you leave a comment this month, 2020 W quarter donated by Dorian of DNL Bullion. So it's not the best condition. It's circulated and it's got a little haziness, but still a 2020 W. Anyway, thanks again for watching, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and close this down. I got to go take care of the rest of the meeting, and we'll see you next month. Thanks, everybody.